Hey, it's AT, and I want to keep talking about Oshi no Ko. I've already made a video on the prologue, but this time I want to talk about my favorite arc. And it just so happens to come right after the prologue. Now, I wasn't planning on making this video for a while, but then it all changed after I saw a single page. When the 2.5 stage arc was coming out, I was kinda reading the story out of obligation. Don't get the wrong idea, I do think the arc is alright, but it kinda just dragged on. Some of the scenes were absolutely amazing, and the character development was pretty good, it just took a while to get there. And do you know what's pretty cool? Two characters that get some really good character development in that arc appear in the arc I'm about to talk about. It's just gonna take like 3 to 4 arcs to get there, so hang on. Okay, anyways, the first 2 arcs of Oshi no Ko are absolutely amazing. Like, those 2 arcs got me hooked long enough to fall in love with the series again. Like, when I got to this panel, when this arc was current, I reread Oshi no Ko again. And do you know what else is pretty good? Oshi no Ko, the anime, is about to come out, so I'm pretty excited on that. So I won't really talk about the prologue since I've already done it, and you can watch that if you want. But at the end of the day, I hope that me talking about this story will get you into the story and deal with the same trauma I did. Now, with that all out of the way, let's talk about the Sweet Today arc. The story opens up with an idol, and she's asking if you want to be an idol too. There are a lot of people who want to be idols, but the story just focuses on one. She's been waiting her entire life for this moment, and has even gotten the support of her friends. Kind of. At least she's confident about it. This girl's name is Hoshino Ruby, and she's the daughter of Hoshino Ai, who was the idol she loved in a previous life. And now she dreams to be just like her mom. And then bonk, Aqua appears to bring her back to reality. It isn't easy being an idol, and Aqua wants to protect her. So he tries to use logic to stop her, but it doesn't matter. I mean, she'd already died once, so she knows what it's like not to be able to do anything. And then Aqua just gives up and heads to directors. Even Ruby noticed this. Her brother changed after their mom died. He doesn't seem to enjoy anything anymore, and when he's with that director, it's like he's up to something. Now, I don't really remember talking about the director too much last time, but I really do like the character. He pretty much pulled Aqua into acting and got Ai's career to get a boost. And on set of the movie that boosted Ai's career, we got introduced to the genius girl who would lick a lying snitch. Wait, it's actually flick a crying switch. She's important, but more on that later. There was something else that changed too. It was Strawberry Productions, Ai's old company. After Ai died, they switched their focus from idols to internet talent. And their adoptive mom now runs the company, so Ruby asks her why don't they just restart the program. Their mom says it's not as easy as it sounds, and then the phone rings. Ruby's completely silent while she's answering the phone, and when it's finally over, she starts crying because she didn't make it. So her mom starts comforting her and deliberately starts talking about politics and not having a fair trial. It does feel like she knows something's up because she ended things off by saying not everyone can do it like Ai. Then there's a cut to Aqua and he's with the director. And we find out that he crushed his own sister's dreams. Was this to protect her, or was he just a siscon? It's a little bit of both, but mostly the siscon part. Now, there is a funny thing about fate though. Even though Aqua tries his hardest to stop her, if it's meant to be, you can't stop it no matter how hard you try. So, one day Ruby went outside, and she got scouted to be an underground idol. Which is even worse than what she was applying for. Then we cut to Aqua and their mom, and they're on the same team when it comes to Ruby becoming an idol. The mom genuinely cares for Ruby and doesn't want to see her go through the pain again. And what's got her conflicted is that Ruby looks like she can actually pull it off. As a result, their mom is willing to let Ruby try, but first Aqua needs to figure something out. So he does what any sane person would do and impersonate a talent agent scouting for idols. And it worked. He did pull an idol into the office, and then he started probing her for answers. To sum it up, the idol ends up spilling her guts, and the company is trash, or she just has a terrible personality. Either way, this is pretty common in the industry, even I had to deal with this. Now, Ruby wants to start, and she's willing to start anywhere. So the mom tries to figure out if this is something she really wants. And she just doubled down, she'll work even harder, cause this is something she has to do. You can't really stop someone who's that driven, so the mom just gives in, deciding to finally restart the idol program and have Ruby join it. Now, the idol Ruby plotline doesn't matter for this video, but it does show us one thing. Aqua knows how to act. He ends up tricking his sister and that idol by acting. So here's a question, why isn't Aqua an actor? He's working for the director, but as an editor. Something must have happened because as a kid, he was dead set on becoming an actor, but then he just suddenly backed off. It turns out he never really wanted to become an actor, and now he's going through all of his trouble because it's probably the easiest way to get his revenge. We do find out that he did try to become an actor, and even with the help of the director, no matter how much time and effort he put into it, he just didn't have the natural talent. If you take anything away from Aqua, just know that he's a bit too much of a realist. It probably comes from the time he was once Goro, but he's not taking any chances with his life. Which kinda begs the question, what's the point of a second life if you're not willing to take any chances? So he just gives up because he believes he can't achieve it. Now, this is where the director comes in. Unlike Aqua, he is still living out his dream no matter what. So after hearing Aqua complain again about how he is not a good actor, he finally decides to say something. If little brats like you can even dream a little, then what hope is there for anyone? Even if you were a university student, it would still be too early to call it quits. Listen up, punk. This advice is coming from a middle-aged guy who's been dreaming for 20 years. I'll only say this once, so listen closely. Everyone has a right to chase their dreams. You can't win the lottery if you don't buy it.
Oshi, dinner's ready. Come down now.
Mom, I'm in the middle of giving some good advice, so don't cut me off like that.
Well, how was I supposed to know that? If you don't come down now, the miso soup will get cold.
Like you, I too had a phase where I felt like things weren't going my way, but...
Oh dear me, your documents are all over the place.
Could you leave already? Hey, you're in your mid-40s, right? Isn't it about time you moved out of your parents' house? There's no point in moving out of a spacious house in the city like this. There are plenty of people like me out there, and even more among creators. You'll never get married if you keep saying things like that. Putting that aside, they say you can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. So it's fine to have faith in your talents or something. It's hard to take career advice from someone who's living with their parents. But here's the thing, you can't really judge a person by their cover, right? So after having Aqua talk about I, he decides to give some actual, genuine advice instead of generic shit. You're right, I really was something. Maybe she was a special case. However, you can never become I, and I can never become you. You shouldn't be scared just because of a setback or two. You should only say things like that after you've used everything up in your arsenal. It's way too early for you to pull the mediocrity act. You want to be an actor, don't you? It's written all over your face. And just when Aqua was about to have a moment, he gets interrupted. So we move on, and now that Aqua and Ruby are 14, it's time for them to go to high school. And they both choose to go to one with the performing arts program. There's an interview process to it, and both the twins do their interviews for their different programs. When they're finished their interviews, they meet up and they start to talk about how they did. Aqua jokingly says that the only way he can fail is that they don't like his name, Aquamarine. And when that name is said aloud, someone recognized it. A familiar girl pops up and starts repeating that name. Aqua has no idea who this is, but Ruby thinks she does. She doesn't. She made the same mistake she did many years ago. The girl corrects her and introduces herself as Amira Kana. She clearly remembers Aqua, but the same can't be said. For the sake of context, he outperformed Kana once in a movie, and that left a mark on her ego. Now Aqua's pretending to remember to be polite, and she just moves on. So she ends up asking, "Are you going to the school for performing arts?" And he answers no, which really surprises Kana. He's going to the school just because of Ruby, and Ruby knows it too. Eventually the conversation reaches a lull, and Aqua decides to head to the director's, but Kana decides to follow him. She keeps on asking him questions, and he doesn't answer any of them, except for the one about acting, which is no. That does bring her down for a second, but she still wants to know more about him. She eventually tries to invite him to her place, which is a bit private, but that's kind of a weird thing to say to someone you just met again. It might be hard to tell, but this girl is actually a celebrity, so going anywhere public is a big no-no. So Aqua just takes her to the director's place. The director ends up giving a completely normal greeting, but it kinda does critical damage to Kana. And again, she just brushes it off and starts getting caught up with Aqua. Just note, she is genuinely happy that Aqua is still in the business. The two of them end up staying for dinner, and after verbally abusing the director, we start to learn more about Kana. She lives alone because her parents moved to the countryside. She also only orders out, and it's fine because she made so much money off acting. But then she suddenly shifts the topic to Aqua's acting, and he's still very embarrassed about it. But nobody cares and they just move on. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. You see, Kana's the lead on a project and she's hinting that there are some roles available. So she tries to give Aqua a role, but he won't take it. She explains that this will be an adaptation of a shoujo manga called Today Will Be Sweet, or better known as Sweet Today, which is a reference to one of the author's previous works, Kaguya-sama Love is War. This hints at a possible shared universe, which is pretty cool. Now this does pique Aqua's interest because of course he's heard of Sweet Today. He's starting to be tempted, so he just needs a small push. So Kana brings up her connection to the producer, which triggers something in Aqua. Before I died, she was using 3 phones. 2 of them were normal, but one was a little special. The phone was old and outdated, and it took a lot of effort to get it working, but it was locked. So Aqua decided to brute force it. Every attempt took 30 seconds. It took him half a day to make 100 and 1,000 for a month. Aqua did this every single day for 4 years, but he finally got it to unlock. And what he found were a bunch of contact information for a bunch of people in the industry. And one just happened to be the producer, Kaburagi Messiah. While that flashback was happening, Kana was still trying to convince Aqua. So while she was talking, he just suddenly decided to join the project. Not exactly the best time to agree, cause Kana misunderstands, but he kinda just ignores her. He then gets warned by Kana that things on set are a little problematic. There are a lot of signs that things are going to be rough, and the first one is when we see the producer. He kinda just gives Aqua the role, cause he doesn't care who does it. And it slowly goes downhill from there. Ruby ends up finding out, and that reminds her of what I said to them. Someday I might become an idol, and someday Aqua might become an actor. She assumes her brother hasn't forgotten those words and is now living out their mom's dreams. But it's nothing so pretty, he's just doing this for revenge. You find out more about Today Will Be Sweet, and it turns out it's a pretty good read. The adaptation, on the other hand, is a lot more iffy. It's being produced by a new company, all the actors are pretty much new, and half of it has already aired. So they check it out, but it's not very good. I mean, how could it turn out well? They tried to cram 14 volumes into 6 episodes while adding more characters to it. Also, the actors couldn't act, so that only makes things worse. So Ruby calls it as it is. It's atrocious. She even makes a comment about Kana cause she was supposed to be a lot better at acting. So when Aqua tells Kana, she didn't exactly take it very well, handling it as gracelessly as possible. Now there's a reason why she's acting the way she is. You see, this show is kinda targeting a certain audience, and they wanted to include as many male models as possible. So the acting part of this show is kinda secondary. But now if they only had male models in a drama, it would be unwatchable, so this is where Kana comes in. Apparently she was hired because she was talented. So Aqua has to ask, why were you so bad? And she just said, I was holding back. She then explains the entire situation. She's aware that the entire acting team is terrible except her. So if she were to actually try and put on a good performance, it would only highlight the fact that everyone else is terrible at acting. She actually gets real for a second and says that, yeah, nobody would like to actually give a terrible performance. It's just that having a good performance and having a good final product are 2 completely different things. So just remember, this show isn't being made for entertainment, it's being used to increase sales and to promote male models. That's why this next part is just heartbreaking. You see, the author of the manga came to watch the adaptation of their series. She just had this face of heartbreaking disappointment. So Kana kinda adjusted her mindset. She wanted to at least make the show watchable. Aqua brings up the fact that this could actually damage reputation, and Kana has this response. What's important for the performer is their ability to communicate. Normally, you would think that talent is everything to an actor, but that's not the case. The second your name no longer sells and you're still an ass, no one will hire you. So Kana decided to give them another reason to hire her, so she chose to be easy to work with. The sad thing is that, as you go throughout the story, you're going to see how that mindset is seen from another perspective. Just pay attention to how Kana sees her relationship with the producer versus his to her. Now, back to the reason they're actually having this meeting. They are actually here to talk about the production, and it turns out filming is tomorrow. Then the episode's going to come out in a week, so right after recording it, they're going to start editing it. That is a very short production cycle, and I can't relate. So just to sum things up, just know that the entire production is a mess and nothing's really scheduled that well. Just look at the last guy who had the role. He kind of just complained so much that he just ultimately gave up. That's why Kana kind of persuaded Aqua to join. Now, this is where the arc really starts to get good. You see, this situation is starting to feel a lot similar to something that happened earlier in the story. Kana even makes a joke about how the tables have turned, but there's a reason why this has to happen. It doesn't matter what people say about her, she just wants this show to be good. And she believes that Aqua can actually help her out here. Then we get to hear Aqua's thoughts on the situation. It's bad acting with bad planning, but the production behind this situation, they're pretty decent. And if they can somehow properly utilize their lead actress, things might actually work out. So are you feeling it? That hope that's building up because this is going to be an underdog story? Yeah, that was kind of a bait because things on set are a lot worse than you could see from the outside. Just look at the set they're working with. Does that look intentional? Is there just trash everywhere or is that rubble from the building itself? Anyways, we get the whole situation from Kana and she explains how it's normally supposed to run. But that's not happening here. They only have this location for 1 day, so they're kind of speedrunning this whole production. Aqua even comments on how sloppy this situation is. His director would do better. But Kana just says they don't have the time or money to fix any of this. And that's when we finally get to see the lead actor. Yo, Kana-chan, the rain's kinda gnarly today. I'd like filming to be delayed. It's just leaking a little bit. It should be fine. Well, when it gets all humid, my hair puffs up, and this place is really damp. It's uncomfortable. Let me introduce you to. He is playing the stalker. Oshi Aqua, pleased to meet you. Yeah, hi. What's with his attitude? He didn't even introduce himself. His name is Narushio Melts, and it's probably because he's pretty young too. This often happens when a young kid starts getting successful. I think I just hurt myself a bit saying that. After all, a certain idol office and other places like it have diligently educated us. We aim to be courteous, well-liked, and avoid making any mistakes. That's the reason we get a lot of offers. With that said, greeting people is an important part of the job. Come on. My name is Hoshino Aqua, affiliated with Strawberry Productions. Pleased to meet you. Ah, likewise. This one introduction triggers something in Aqua because this man is a little special. You see, Kaburagi Messiah had some sort of relationship with Ai. So there is this chance that he could be his dad or be responsible somehow in Ai's death. Either way, Aqua needs DNA evidence to prove anything from this producer, so that might be an issue because he's kind of a big deal. That doesn't really matter right now though, because rehearsals are starting soon. And they kind of just go off without any hitch. Nothing remarkable happens, so the story ends up skimming it. So the entire set ends up taking a break, and Kana starts talking with Aqua. She gives him a compliment, and he's still very modest about it. He just keeps on comparing himself to Ai, and in his mind, until he's as good as Ai, he'll never be a good actor. So he openly just says, don't have any expectations for me. And at first, Kana tries to comfort Aqua, but it is revealed that she actually did have some kind of hope inside. But this is good enough, so she settles. She goes into greater detail on critiquing Aqua's performance. As a reader, you can genuinely see her love of acting and the craft itself. There were many points in her career that she wanted to quit because things haven't been going very well. However, look at her mindset at this current job. Remember that this show is doing very poorly right now, but she's happy that she's being acknowledged for her skill and talent. So even if Aqua isn't the greatest actor, the fact that he put in the time and effort and kept going at it makes her happy. It's always nice to know that you're not the only one struggling in this world. Which is kind of really rough when you see the real reason the producer hired Kana. While Aqua was kind of sleuthing around, he notices that the producer is taking a little smoke break. And he can use whatever the producer is smoking as DNA evidence, so his entire purpose here is done. Now, all he has to do is wait, and he overhears some things that the producer says about Kana. She is very easy to work with. She'll pretty much do anything assigned to her because she's looking for approval. And it's kind of an added bonus that she went freelance because she is dirt cheap. There's only one downside to hiring her, and it's her passion for acting. Now, Aqua knows the truth. Kana was genuinely happy, but they don't care at all about her. So, Aqua pretty much got everything he needed, but what comes next is why this is my favorite arc. Chapter 17 of this manga is my favorite, and I don't think that's going to change. This is the part where I would tell you to go read it yourself, but you're here, so let's go. So, the chapter starts when the cameras start rolling. All eyes are on Kana, and we get to see what got her here in the first place. She had a pretty strong start as a child prodigy, but now she's a little irrelevant. Some would say that her career ended in grade school, but she kept trying, and eventually she got that lead role. Now this show has to be a success, so she's trying her hardest even if it meant grasping at straws. There's just a little issue because this show is garbage, and she knows it. 4 out of the 6 episodes have already aired, and the majority of people already see this show as a failure. But don't worry, she's still holding on, there's still hope. You see, there's one more scene, the most famous scene left to be recorded. And it just so happens that Kana loves this scene as well, as she's read it over and over. So as long as she keeps on trying, she'll make it work.
That sounds just like you. Are you stupid? I'm not leaving you alone.
Or maybe this was just doomed from the very start. This scene is clearly missing something and the directors are just letting it be. Then it hits her that directors might not actually care about acting. And as things start to feel hopeless, the mic starts picking up some splashes of water. It would be very easy to cut here, but they don't. This is where you start to see that the crew actually cares about this production because they know those footsteps fit in. So the cameras keep rolling, and now it's Aqua's time to shine. This girl isn't the type of person that you think she is. She would never be compatible with a playboy like you. She's the same kind of person as me. Eh? I thought he wasn't very good earlier. She'll wither and die in the sun. But compared to the rehearsal, the darkness suits her. This feels just like it does in the manga. Then the manga switches to Aqua's perspective. I don't have talent like I don't have her captivating aura, nor am I good at acting. Thus, I have to use everything in my disposal. Props, cameras, lighting, actors. Even if I have to use them all. You are different from us. I'm gonna be like I. The next thing our MC does is whisper something to the actor. You're pretty ugly up close. Photoshop really does wonders, huh? Which actually blindsides Melt, and he actually starts showing actual emotion.
Huh? What the fuck did you just say?
The crazy thing is that nobody expected anything from Melt, not even himself. But the crazy thing is that Aqua did. Are you deaf? I said you have nothing to gain for protecting that woman. And it's at this point that Aqua is just completely off script, which rightfully worries parts of the crew. And the thing that I loved is just the director is completely unfazed. He actually just plays along. And it's most likely because things are just starting to feel like the manga, and it is not an accident. Since this is the way that Aqua likes to act, he likes to fully understand the material and play it to a T. Now the scene is just playing out, Melt is just doing his thing, but our focus is more on what Aqua is thinking. Look, I've set the scene for you. You wanted to do this, didn't you? Now act to your heart's content, Kana. The climax of this scene is the heroine breaking into tears. The light, to make that one spot shine as bright as possible. I'll act out the darkness. Scarily, creepily. Nobody wants someone like you. Know your place and stop dreaming already. You'll never amount to anything. Your life is nothing but pitch darkness. And now for the finishing act. It all depends on how well Kana can cry for us. Even so, I believe there's light. Come to think of it, this was her specialty after all. Now that pretty much wraps up Aqua's scene. And as things are slowly winding down for Aqua, you can see he's rubbing his face because he did get hit. On the other hand, in the same panel, the perpetrator is just kind of awkwardly standing there watching. Eventually Melt builds up enough courage and apologizes, and Aqua kinda just says that's not needed. This was all going according to Aqua's plan because he intentionally pissed off Melt. Good acting should carry some sort of emotion, so the second Melt started getting emotional, his acting improved. And as Aqua is talking about how this is a plus to Kana as well, she's in the background listening. Then we cut to the crew and one of the members is complaining to the director, who just doesn't care. He just brushes it off saying that, yeah, this is kind of what happens when you work with kids. Then he just makes a comment about Kana and how she's going to be happy. That one line might not show a lot, but it's kind of nice to know that there's someone on set who cares. Which is a nice contrast to how bleak things were in Aqua's head. Now for the final part of chapter 17, our focus shifts to Kana. The director is asking if she's ready to record the final scene, but her focus is somewhere else. We then get a peek at the script and it shows how the character should feel in the scene, and Kana just embodies that. That is how chapter 17 ends. Maybe I overhyped this chapter, but to be honest, it is still my favorite chapter to this date. If you're curious, this is the year 2024, and I can't remember when I started this. Now, all I know is that I need to finish this video before I can move on, so let's continue. For the final chapter of this arc, we get the perspective of the author Sweet Today, and she is on her floor, slowly waking up, clearly overworked. Which is apparently very normal because the assistants just get to work. And while they're working, the author is going to be watching Sweet Today, and she gets an interesting response. They are surprised that she is still watching Sweet Today. Even her assistants gave up on following the adaptation and tells the author that she shouldn't force herself to watch it. Just a small little aside, okay? This assistant in particular is important in the future, okay? She pops up again. Now, we do get her reason for not watching. She knows the author and how much work she put in it, so when fans mock it, she couldn't stand it. So now, the way the author responds to this assistant is the reason why I love Oshi no Ko so much. She knew that this was going to happen. Her story was done, there was no continuation to it. So she made her peace, at least Sweet Today would be able to live in another way. She talked to fellow authors who had adaptations done, and they all said the same. Don't get your hopes up. The thing is that most people dream of having their works come to life, and when it finally becomes reality, it never lived up to the fantasy. So the author made a clear distinction in her head. At the end of the day, it's just an adaptation. Now, isn't that really depressing? I think this is one of the reasons why I like Oshi no Ko. We all have this fantasy in our head, and the author tries to show the reality of it, and it isn't that pretty, is it? Sometimes it's an exaggeration and sometimes it isn't. The thing is that who cares if it's real or not? Because the way the manga solves these issues, or at least tries to uplift the audience, is always my favorite thing. You know, this entire time she's explaining why she's putting herself through this, she's been watching the adaptation. And when it gets to Kana pouring out her heart acting, it actually brings a tear to the author's eyes. This causes her assistants to notice that something's up because she suddenly stopped talking. And the craziest thing is the way the author responds. She's actually really happy she agreed to the adaptation. That is incredibly cheesy and maybe even unrealistic, but for some reason it really hit me, you know? Now, there is a tiny bit more to this arc, but I think this is a good place to end it. Just know that the author took a really realistic approach to the final episode, which made sense, right? There's no way that a garbage tier adaptation could be saved by one good episode. And that was my favorite arc in Oshi no Ko, the Sweet Today arc. You want to know a secret of why I wanted to make this video so badly? It's because it's connected to Kaguya-sama Love is War. It is still one of my favorite series of all time, because I know this might sound a bit cringe, but I read the entire manga aloud with doing all the voices for fun, because it was my third time reading it at that point. If you're curious, I recommend the anime over the manga. The anime is just so good that even though you're missing some small things, it doesn't matter. So how does this connect to Oshi no Ko? Back when I first started this video, there was only a mention of Sweet Today, and I connected the dots because the authors were the same. It wasn't until chapter 90-ish, where a special chapter came out, that revealed that there was a definite connection. In that little bonus issue, Ruby has just gone back from a photo shoot and she talks about her experience. She was very nervous at the start, but the photographer kept on talking to her and it really calmed her down. The funny thing is that she mentions telling stories about her school life. And the thing is, at the very end of that chapter, we see who's credited as the photographer, and Shirogane Shinomiya. I am a sucker for a good time skip. You know what that confirms? That at the end of Kaguya-sama Love is War, Miyuki Shirogane and Shinomiya Kaguya get together at the end. You might say, isn't that obvious from the ending of Kaguya-sama Love is War? Well, obviously some time has passed, and they're happily together, and Kaguya achieved her dream of becoming a photographer. So I'm happy on that department. So because I waited this long to finish this video, I get this awesome feeling of, damn, I was right. Anyways, man, I got more to say, but who cares at this point? I want to finish this, move on, and do another video. So, thank you very much if you made it this far. Please like, comment, subscribe, and peace. Oh yeah, if you're curious, I haven't watched Oshi no Ko yet. I'm going to do it right after this video, so I may make a video on that, who knows.